Hey, what's up everyone, what's going on? John here, and in today's video I show you how you can create, read, update and delete records, also known as CRUD, all in PHP and MySQLi. If you already have some knowledge in what I'm teaching in a specific section, you can always use the timestamp below to jump to a specific section. That out of the way, let's get started. First, I'm going to show you how you can create this beautiful form and this beautiful table in Bootstrap 5 and custom CSS. Later on, I'll show you how you can be able to use the form to collect information from users, how you can be able to use the table to read the records, as well as how you can be able to update and delete records in PHP and MySQL. So let me show you the final product. Here I'm required to put the username, and here I come and put the age, company and the title, and then I hit on submit. So when I hit on the submit, the records are successfully added to the database, and I receive this member successfully added message. And when I move on to my table, I'm going to see that specific record appear down here. Say I want to edit the record of this specific member, I can just come and hit on edit, and then I can just come and change the name. Maybe I can change the age to 50 and the title to director, and then I hit on submit, and again I'm going to see this success message, member updated, and I'm going to see the member records being updated accordingly. And if I want to remove the member, again I can remove the member by just hitting delete, and you're going to see member deleted successfully message appear there. And if I want to get rid of this message, I can just refresh and the message will be no more. So if this is something that interests you, kindly keep on watching the video, and I guarantee you that you're going to understand every bit. If there is anything that will not be clear, kindly comment in the comment section below, and I'll be more than glad to respond to your question. See you in a second. Well, here I am in my project folder that I have named CRUD_tutorial 2, and as you can notice, my project folder is within a XAMPP localhost, that is in the htdocs folder. This is a good practice, especially if you are running your website on your local host. Especially if you're running on XAMPP, you need to have your project folder in this specific path: XAMPP, htdocs, and then your folder here. Now within the folder, I have the Bootstrap CSS files that we'll be requiring in a folder called dist for distribution. So you're going to get this folder once you download Bootstrap, either Bootstrap version 5 or Bootstrap version 4 from a Bootstrap official website. So upon opening this, I'm going to see the CSS files, that is Bootstrap CSS files, as well as the JS files, that is the JavaScript files that we might be requiring in this project. Now to save time, I've already opened my text editor, that is Visual Studio Code, and I already have the folder open. Just in case you're not used to Visual Studio, if you want to open a folder, you can just come and click on this link, that is upon opening Visual Studio. So you can just come and click open folder, or head on to file on top here, and then you're going to see the open folder. And now what I want to do, I want to create a new file, and I want to create it within my project folder. So I'm just going to come and click inside here, just like that, and then on top here I'm going to click new file, and I want to come and name this file as index.php. So I'm just going to say index.php, and the file should open automatically here. First, I'm going to have the HTML basic structure, And to do that in Visual Studio, we just place the exclamation mark and then we hit on the tab, and boom, we have the basic HTML structure. And now I'm moving on to the title, because I want to change the title from document to CRUD underscore tutorial. So I'll just come and say CRUD underscore tutorial. Sorry. And just before I leave at the end, I also want to come and link to my bootstrap.css and my custom CSS. So below the title, I'm just going to come and write link, and then I hit on the tab. This will have me with this link with a reel of style sheet, and in the href I'm going to come and have the path where I have my Bootstrap files, and in this case I want to be linking the bootstrap main.css. So I'll just come and write dist where I have my CSS files, then CSS, then / bootstrap. So just come and say bootstrap dot main dot CSS. So that is just the path to my CSS file. So if I come to the dist, I can open the CSS, and we are actually linking to this specific file here. So now down here, I'll be writing some custom CSS but later. But I want to come and link to it right now. We have also not created the file, but we'll also be creating it in a moment. So I'll again just come and write link, and the path again will be dist / CSS / custom .css. So we'll be creating this file later, and also creating the custom CSS. Alright, now we have linked to our CSS files, and we already have a proper title there. Now I want to head on to the body. This will be having the content, and because I want our work to look neat and organized, I will be utilizing the Bootstrap grid system. So to get started here, I'm going to have a div with a class of container. So just come and say dot container, and that will have me with a div with a class of container. And now within the div, I'm going to create a row. Remember, if you want to use or create the Bootstrap grid system, you have to start with a row. So I'm going to come and create a div with a class of row. So all your columns should be within a row. So create a div and call it a row. And now within the div with a class of row, I'm now going to have my columns. So I'll just come and say dot col, and for the medium sized screens, I'm going to have it with 12. So I'll just come and say, let me repeat that, dot col -md -12. So on medium screens, I want to have 12 columns. So I'll hit on the tab first, and that will create a div with a class of col md12. And for the small screens, I want to have at least 6 columns. So just come and say col sm, and this will have 6 columns like that. So you can have it with whichever number of columns you want. This is just for the sake of this tutorial. So now within the columns, I'm now going to come and have my form, and because I want to be fancy, I want our work to look neat and clean, I'm going to have our form in what we call a card. So Bootstrap has what we call cards, and that's what I'm going to utilize in this case here. So I'm going to come and create another div with a class of card, and I'll also come and give this div a class of form as well. This will help us in our custom CSS, so we'll be utilizing that in a moment. Now within the card, I'm going now to have the card body. So I will create another div, and I'll call it a card body. Now within the card body, this is where I'm going to have my form. So I'm going to create a div with a class of form. So I'll be lapping my form within a div that will have a class of form. So I'll say form tab, and then now within the div, this is where I'm going to have my form. So I'll just come and write form, and then I hit on the tab, and the form appears like that. Later on, we'll be using this form to collect information, so we'll be adding the post method later, but right now we're just dealing with the HTML, so let's just focus on that for now. So now within the form, I'm now going to put the label and the input fields. So to do that, I'll have both of them in a div that I'm going to call form group. And now within this div, I'm going to have the label or the label, whatever you call it, and it will have username. So let's say username. And now below the label, now I'm going to have the input, and I'll give the input the Bootstrap class of form control. So this will help me in styling that input field. So I'll come and say form control control, and now because I need a few fields, I'm going to come and copy this, and so that you guys can see what I'm doing here, I'm going to space my work out a little bit like that, and I'm going to come and copy this and duplicate it several times. So 1 2 3 4, and now I'm just going to come and change this to, let me call this age. This one I can call it company name, and for this one I can call it title. And down here I want the submit button, so I'm going to get rid of this the label and the input, and I'm going to replace them with the button, button, and it will be the button submit. Remember, we'll be using this form to submit some information, so it will have the type of submit. And I'll also give it the Bootstrap class of what that is btn. So just come and say btn, and because I want it to be a block, I'm going to say btn block. This should be block like that, and I also want it to be green in color, so I'll again say btn success. So this is the Bootstrap class that will help us to style our button. So now within the button, I'm going to come and have the name submit. Alright, so that out of the way, we have our form complete already. So just in case I'm moving very fast, make use of the comments below to ask any question in any part that might not be clear. So now something else is that you'll not notice me saving my work. This is because I have set Visual Studio Code to auto save my work. So if you're using any other text editor and doesn't have that feature, remember to always save your work. So in my case, it is being saved after every second. Every word I type is saved automatically. So I'm heading on to my browser right now, and I want to refresh or just access this code so that we see how it appears on a browser. So I'm using Mozilla Firefox as my web browser, so you can use any of your favorite browser. So here I'm just going to come and write a localhost, and I'm going to write my project folder, which is CRUD tutorial 2, and just wait for a second. Yes, and this is the form that we have. So you can see it is well styled, but we still need to move it away. We still need to move it down a little bit. So we'll be utilizing the custom CSS to be able to do that. We also need to have a name on top here. So I can just come and just before the form group, I can come and add a title here. So maybe I can utilize the Bootstrap H1, so I can just come and so maybe H2. Let me just have this in small letters, so H2, and maybe I can just come and call these members form, and I save that. So if I refresh that, I should see the name appear on top there. Now the next thing that I want to do, I want to create some spaces between these names here. So to do that, I will utilize the Bootstrap class MB4. So I'll be going to my input fields here, and on the class I'll be adding MB-4. So this will just help me to create some space between them. So I'm just going to copy them here. So if you allow me, very fast, and also on the button, and that is saved. So if we refresh our work, we're going to see that space, which is making our work to look readable. All right. That out of the way, now I think we can write our custom CSS to make our form look even better. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to head on to my CSS file. Remember, my CSS file is under the dist for distribution, and within the CSS here, I'm going to create a new file. And remember, we already have linked to that specific file, and we called it custom.css. So I'm going to come and create it now here. So that is a custom.css. So now within the custom.css, I'm going to come and write HTML here. So HTML, and below that I'm going to come and have a body, and within the body I want to style my body so that it has a height of 100%. And now below that I'm also going to have another body, and for this one I'm going to have it with a display of what we call flexbox. Below that I want to also give it a padding, so a padding top of 40 pixels. So let me just go with 40 pixels, and I also want to come and have the padding bottom. So, and I'll also give it 40 pixels. Below that I also want to style the background. I want to give it give my website a background color. So I'll just come and say background color, and I want it to be grayish, and for this I'll use the color code hashtag F5, and that will give me that grayish color. Now finally I want to come and style my form. Remember, we have that div that has a class of form, so I'm going to come and style the form here. So I'll say dot form. Remember, the dot usually represents the class, so I say dot form, and now within the form I want to come and give my form a specific height. So for the height I'm going to give it 100% first, and for the maximum width, so I'll say max width, I'll give it let me just give it what 900, yes, 900 pixels. And finally, we want to have a margin, and you're going to give it a margin of out. Remember, this will have it aligned at the center. And that is all the custom CSS that we need to style our form. So that being saved, we can now head on to our browser and refresh to see what that will give us, and boom, you can see the file or the form is well centered, so we can see all that, and it is readable very well. We still have one more thing that we have to fix down here. I think we didn't give the last we need to come and have the MB4 here, so MB-4 here. Yes, and now if we refresh that, yeah, we should see that space there. So that is our need form. The next thing that we are creating now is the table down here. So I'm heading back to my text editor, and just below this container here, so I should count how many, should count at least 3 divs. So 1, 2, 3. So should have that spaced, and it is always good to use comments. I forgot to use comments so that you understand where your divs has started and stopped. So let me just come and test this and see. I forgot to have the comments, right? So that is still within the form. So should yeah, so we need it outside there. So maybe I can just come and have a comment. Let me just come and create a comment here. So to create a comment in HTML, we just come and write that exclamation mark, some 3 lines like that. Then we can just come and say form starts here, and we can have some few lines, and then we add that, and I can just come and copy that and have it now down here. So this will help you to understand the code and know where a specific thing starts and where it ends. Alright, so forgot to do that, but it's a good practice. So now below the form here, I'm going to come and create another row. I want to come and create another row. So to do that, I'm going to say a dot row, and that will have me with a div with a class of row. Remember, we are still utilizing the Bootstrap grid system, where it usually looks like a table. I know you are aware of this. So we've just created one row on top here and divided that row into several columns. Now we are creating another row below that row, and again we want to subdivide it into several columns, and now within the columns we are going to have our table. So let me do this practically so that you guys can understand what I mean here. So within the row, I'm now going to come and create the column. So I'm subdividing this row. So I'll just come and say dot call hyphen md, and we're just going to use the columns similar to what we have on top there. So call md12, and for the small screens, I'm going to come and say call hyphen sm6. So for the small screens, the columns will change to 6 columns, and on big screens it will be 12 columns. So now again, within this, I'm going to utilize the Bootstrap CRUD. So I'm going to come and create a div with a class of CRUD, and now because I want to have some space, I'm also going to give this div a class of MB4. Remember, this just helps us to create some white space or just spaces within items. So now within the CRUD, I'm going to come and have another div that is a CRUD hyphen header, because I want to have a heading. So I'm going to come and say CRUD header there, and for the CRUD header I'm going to have the head with h3, and I'm just going to come and say table members, and now below the div CRUD header I'm going to come and have yet another div, and this will be the CRUD body. So I'll say again dot CRUD hyphen body. Upon hitting the tab, I'm getting the div with a class of CRUD body automatically. And now here I'm going to come and have one more div. So I'm going to wrap my table within a div that will have a class of table responsive. This just helps me to have a responsive table. So I'll just come and say dot table hyphen responsive. So responsive. And now within now this div I'm going to come and have my table, and for the table I'm going to have it with a class of table, and the table is again a Bootstrap class that will help me to style the table. So I'll just come and say table, hit the tab, so I'm given a div with a class of table, and I'm also going to just come and give it another Bootstrap class of v middle. Alright, so now within this div I'm going to come and have my table now. So let me just hide this so that you guys can see clearly what is happening here. So now within this div I want now to come and have the table. Oh, sorry, this was not supposed to be a div, rather it should be the table itself. So let me just come and say table, hit the tab, and I give it a class of table. Yes, so that is a table, and also v middle. So it should be like that and not a div. Alright, so hoping that everything is moving on well. Now within the table I first of all want to come and have the t head. So this will help me to style my column headings. So I'll just come and say t head, and for the t head I'm going to come and have the what we call the row. So this will be the top row in the table. So I'll say tl, and now within the tl, that is the row, I'm going to subdivide this into several columns, and because this is within the head I'm going to come and have the th, that is for the table head. So and I want to have at least 4 of these, so I'll say th asterisk 4, and when I hit the tab I'm going to get 4 of them. So I also want to have them with a class of scoop call. So I'm just going to come and hold Shift and Alt, because I want to just come and write these in all of the th. So I'll just come and say scope of is equals to call. This is not so important, but it's just good to just have it there. Alright, now within the first th I'm going to come and have the username, and for this one I'm going to have the age, and this will be the company name. So company name, and this one I'll give it title. Alright, so finally down here we also want to have one more th. This will be for the action. This is for the delete and the edit buttons. So I'm going to have th, and for this one I'm going to give it this specific stuff here. So call span is equals to 3. So this is just helping me to at least merge 3 cells into one. So I'll just come and write 3, and we're going to see the advantage of this. So I'll just come and say action here. So the call span just helps us to, as I've said, merge 3 cells into one. Remember, a cell is the intersection between a row and a column. So we have our columns ready. So we now want to go to the body. So now just below the th, I mean the t head, we are going to have what we call the t body. So this will be the body of our table, and we are going to again have a row, and it is this row that we are going to subdivide into several td. So remember, if you're having the columns or subdividing the columns within the body, we use the td, but if you're subdividing the row within the head, we use the th. So here I'm going to come and have the td, and again I want 4 of them, so I'll say * 4, and then I hit the tab. That gives me 4, and so here I'm going to come and have the username, and here I'll have the age. Should we have this? Sorry. So now here we should have the actual records. We should have the actual records. So maybe for the username I can write my name, John, should be John, and here I just can come and write age. Maybe I write 52. For the company name, just because I love myself, I can say get to know it. So get to know it. And for the title, I can just come and say director. Alright, just some fake record there. Alright, and I think so far so good. That is working so well. So let's see how that will work on the browser. So just head on to my browser and refresh that, and we have that cool table there. And now, as you can see here, we have this action here. So it also means that we need to come and add the various buttons, and you can see now all the 3 columns that we have here were merged into one. So just before I forget, let me just come and add another td here. So I'm actually going to add 2 of them. So I'll select 2 here, and the first one will have the first button. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to have an anchor tag. So I'm going to have an anchor tag here. So just come and say a, and I'll have it with href of equal to, we are going to add that later. And now I'm going to come and close my anchor tag here, close it there, and now within these I'm going to come and have my button. So I'm going to come and say button, and I'll give it a class of is equals to the Bootstrap class, that will help me to style the button, which is btn, and for this one I want it to be green in color, so again I'll say btn success. So let me just come and close the button here just before I forget. So a button. Yes, and now within the button we are going to have the name edit or update, whichever name, and so that you can see what is happening here, we can just come and split this like that. Yes, so first of all I've created an anchor tag, so this will make it to be a link, of course, and now within the link we have the button with a class of with a class of btn success, and we want to have the same down here. So to save time I can just copy that and duplicate it down there. This one will be for the delete, so I want it to be red in color, and for that case I'll have it with a class of btn danger, so that will give me the red color, and for the name I'll change it to delete, or is it delete? Alright, so we can now refresh that and see how it looks on a browser. Yes, and we have those two buttons appearing there. And now what we just need to do is to make it look a little bit more fancy. So we are going to add some custom CSS to the table, and so for that case I'm going to go to the CRUD here, and I'm going to come and add a class of table. Yes, because this is what we'll be using in our custom CSS. So I'll head on to my custom CSS, and here I'm just going to come and have the class table just down here. So I'll say dot table, and the first thing that I want to do with the table is to give it a padding top. So I'm just going to come and say padding top, and I'll give it a padding top of 60 pixels, and below that I'm also going to come and give it a width. So a width, and for the width I want to give it a width of 100%, so 100%. So this will make our table, or my table, responsive, so it can respond to each screen it is being viewed on. Hope that's correct English or grammar. So width, and we want to have the max width, and for this one I'll give it a maximum width of again 900 pixels. And margin, again, just to have it centered, I'm going to give it a margin of auto, and I'm just going to give it a padding bottom of let's say 40 pixels. Hope that works. Yes, and that is saved, and we can now refresh to see how that looks like. Yes, and the form or the table is there, but we have a problem. The padding has affected the table, but we didn't want that. We want this space to be within the form and the table, and not within the head. So let me see how we can fix that. Okay, card body. Alright, so let me see, we can remove this class table in this div and we move it to our column on top here on this div that has our columns. So let me now refresh that and see. Yeah, so that looks good. So we have the space between the form and the table, and now the table is just small and simple and clean and readable and all that good things. Alright, so we can even try to look at how responsive our website is. So maybe I can just come and have it like that. Yes, and you can see our work is so responsive. So that is working so well. So I think that is all the HTML that we need here. Yeah, that's all the HTML that we need. So next we'll be writing the PHP script that will help us to add information to the database using this form, and also display the information here in this table, and also how we can be able to edit and delete the table. So this is what is called CRUD, or create, read, update and delete information using PHP and MySQLi. See you in a second. Alright, welcome back. Glad that you're still watching. So here I am on PHP My Admin, and I'm here because the first thing that I want us to do is to create a database where we'll be storing our information. So we are going to create a database named CRUD underscore tutorial. So I'll just come and say CRUD underscore tutorial, and I'm just going to come and click create here, and I'll give it a moment so that it is processed. So the database CRUD underscore tutorial is created, and now within the database we are going to create a table, and the table will be named TBL members, and we're just going to have it with 4 columns for now. If we need any, we are going to add that later. So I'll just come and click go, and that will help me to create my table members, and it will be ready for me to add all the field names that I need. And the first, of course, will be ID. Just come and give it ID, and it will have the type of int, and for the length or values I'm going to give it 10. And I also want to make the records in this specific field auto increment. So I want my records to be numbered in an increasing manner. So I'm just going to come and check this button, which means auto increment. So just come and click on that, and upon clicking on that, it will also have it with an index of primary. This to mean that that specific field will be unique. Then the next one will be username. And for this one I'm going to have it with a type of varchar. So varchar, so I'm just trying to click on this, what's happening. Yes, varchar. And for the values I can just give it 100, and here I'm going to come and have the company name, and again it will have a class of varchar, and the value or length will be 100. Here I'm going to come and also have the age. So for the age I can give it int, and for the values I can give it 100. And we need one more row there. So I'm just going to come and click go on top here to add one row, as you can see inside here. And we are given that one row, and for this row I'm going to have the title, and for the title again I'm going to have it with the type of varchar, and the values will be 100. Alright, so after that I'm just going to come and click save to save the table. and it is being processed. My request is currently under processing, and boom, we have the table there, table members, and it has the following names: ID, username, company underscore, name, age, and title. So that's the first thing that we required to do before we write any PHP script. Now I'm back on my IDEX. I'm back to the Visual Studio, and this is now because I want to start creating my PHP script. And the first thing that we are going to do is now to connect to the database that we have created. So to connect to the database, I'm going to come and click inside here, and this is because I want to create a file, and I'm going to name this file as con.php. so con, so I'm going to come and call it con.php. Yes, and that should open automatically. So now within the con.php, we are going to write the PHP script that will help us to connect to the database that we've just created. So to get started, I'm just going to come and have the PHP opening tag and the PHP closing tag. And now within these, we're going to write the PHP script that will help us to connect to the database. So here I'll just come and write a comment and say params to connect to the database. And now down here we are going to have the parameters, and the first one will be db host, the db host, and that will be equal to localhost. So local host, and the next parameter down here will be $db user, and the user is root. So inside here I'll come and have root, and the other one will be db password, so db pass. And this one, because I don't have a password, I'll just leave it empty. If you have a password, then put it there, the password to connect to your database or your PHP MyAdmin. And the last parameter here will be db name. So the db name will be CRUD. So that is CRUD underscore tutorial. So that is the database that we've just created a few moments ago. So now down here we want to connect to the database. So now I'm going to come and have the comment, and I'm just going to say connect to the database. So now down here I'm going to have now the connection to the database. What we had on top there are just the parameters that we need to connect to the database. We had to first of all declare them before we now connect to the database. Now I'm going to come and create a variable here called con. This is a variable that we are going to use a number of times in connecting to the database. So I'm going to set this to equal to MySQLi. So that is MySQLi underscore connect, and this will have the parameters that we have declared on top there, so in the order that they follow each other. So that is db host, db user, and db password, and finally we have the db name. So this should be in that order and as you've written them on top there. So that is the connection to the database, and just in case the connection is not successful, we want to show an error. We want to show the user an error that the connection failed. So we are going to use the if statement here. So I'm just going to come and say if, and the condition will be if, and the condition will be if the connection does not happen. So for that we are going to start with an exclamation mark. So that means there is an error with the connection. So if if the connection does not happen, we want to come and say die, and now within this we are going to come and tell the user that connection to the database failed. Maybe we can tell him to please contact the administrator, and then we can close that down there. So this is all the PHP script that we need to connect to the database, and I want to come and test that. So I'm going to come and access that specific file here. So con.php, and we see nothing. So that is to mean our connection is happening well. The connection is successful if we don't see any error here. But if there is any error, say for example we make a typo on the database name, and then we come and refresh that, we are going to see the MySQL connect error here, and that is unknown database blah blah blah, please connect, please contact the administrator. So we have all that information there. That is because of this line of code down here. So let me just remove that, and we refresh that, and we should see nothing. So if you see nothing, no error, means the connection is happening successfully. So we can now even close that, because now the next thing that we want to do is to head on to the form, and we want to make sure that we can use the form to create information and have it submitted in the database. So I'm now on my form here, and the first thing that I want to do is I want to come and have it with a method of post. So I'll say method is equals post. So the method post is the one that helps us to collect the information supplied by the user and have it sent into the database. Alright, and to make that possible, we also need to go to the input, and within the input we need to have what we call a name, and here we'll want to collect the username, remember. So we are going to come and have the name equal to username. So this is very, very important if your form is to collect any information. If you are to submit information through your form, you need to have this. So I'm also going to go to this and say that here I'll be requiring to collect the age, and here again I'm going to have a name, and for the name I'm going to set it to equal to company, a company underscore name. So if you're having two names, two separate names, it's good practice that you separate them with an underscore. It's good practice that you separate that with an underscore. So and finally we are going to have the name here, and I'll set this to equal to title. And finally we're also going to have the button with a name as well, and I'm just going to have it with a name of submit, though you can have it with any name. submit. Yes, so make sure that that is done on your form. And the final thing that you want to do here is, now in the action we want to link to our PHP script. So remember, we'll be creating a file that will have the PHP script that will help us to collect or pass the information through the form to the database. So I'm just going to come and call that file. Let me just come and call it what? Let me just come and call it and.php. And now we need to come and create that file. We need to come and create that file here. So within my project folder, I'm going to come and create that specific file, that is and.php. And it is now within the add.php that we are going to have the PHP script that will collect the information from the user and submit it to our database. So the first thing that I usually like doing is to test whether the submit button has been clicked by the user. So I always strive to make sure that I start with that. And to do or to make that possible, I create an if statement with a condition of is set. And because we are using the form to pass the information, and when you're passing information via a form, we use the post method, we're going to come and have the post method here. So I'm just going to come and have another set of brackets there, and then the post. So this should be in capital letters, the word post. And because we are testing whether the submit button was clicked, and we named the button, or we gave the button a name of submit, we're going to have the submit in single quotes here. So that is the name submit. So submit there. And now down here we are going to write the code that will be echoed just in case the button is working successfully. And down here we are going to have the code which will be displayed if the button was not clicked or it is not working. So here as usual, I just usually come and write echo is equals to echo comma echo, that is echo, and then we're going to have that in quotes, and we're just going to come and simply say clicked, or we can just add some fun in it and say I was clicked. And if in any circumstance, in the unfortunate circumstance, the button was not clicked or it is not working, we want to come and echo what I was not clicked, or maybe oops, just say oops, I was not clicked. Yes, so so that's it. Now we can test and see if that is working. So we get back to our form here, and we refresh that, and then we click on the submit button, and sorry, we have an error on line 7. Oh sorry, we didn't close that there. So we refresh that, and what we see is I was clicked. That means the button is working successfully. So if there is a problem with a name or a typo there, if we come and refresh that, we're going to see the oops, I was not clicked. That means that the button is not working, or it was never clicked. So I'm going to comment that out, as it is my habit. And now what I want to do is to collect the information from the form and store them in variables. So the first will be the username, and I'm going to collect the username from the form using the post method. So I'm going to come and say $, post, and in this case I'm collecting the username. So this should be in small letters, so username. So what I'm basically doing here is I'm collecting the username supplied by the user, and I am of course through the post method, and I'm storing it in a variable called username. And because I have several records to collect, so I'm going to come and duplicate this because I need to have the company name, the age, and the title. So I'm going to change this variable to company underscore name, and here I'm going to come and have company underscore name, and this will be age, and the last will be the title. So I'm collecting the title through the post method and storing it in a variable called title. Title. And then now, after collecting the information and storing them in the various variables, I want now to insert them into the database. So I'm going to come and create a variable called SQL. So this will help me to insert the information into the database. So I'm going to have that in a set of quotes and close that. So here I'm going to come and say insert into, and remember we created the table TBL members. So the TBL members is where we are inserting the information, and we want to set we want to come and say set, we want to come and set the username. So this should be in small letters, username. And the username, of course, remember we stored the username in a variable called username. So remember we collected the username from the form using the post method, and we stored that in the variable username. So we are saying set the username field name that we have in the table members, set it with the record username that we collected from the user. So I'm just going to come and say variable username here. So username, and remember to have that end with a comma and not a semicolon. So that is a mistake that you can make, and it will make your code not to work. So it's a common problem, so just make sure that you don't fall into that. So I'm also going to have that in quotes, and again edit with a comma, and this will be the variable company name. So company or company name. And I just want to be uniform here, so let me just come and have this in single quotes instead of double quotes. Yes, like that. And down here I'm also going to come and have the title, and I'm going to set the title to equal to a single quote, and end that with a comma as well. And here I'm going to have the variable title that has the title that we collected from the username, and lastly we are going to have the age, And for the age, we are not going to have it with a comma at the end. I repeat, we are not going to have a comma at the end of the last field or the last stuff that you have here. So if you put a comma here, then your code will not work. It is as simple as that. So we're just going to come and say age, and we leave it without a comma. And now we have the information inserted in the database, but we still need to come and create a query, MySQL query down here. So I'm going to create a variable with a class of results. So I'm just going to shorten that to release for results, and I'm going to set that to MySQLi query. So MySQLi underscore query, and that will have the variable con. So we are testing if we are actually having a connection to the database, and we are also testing if the data was successfully inserted into the database. That's why we are creating the MySQL query and giving it the parameter SQL, just to test whether this SQL statement is working here, which is inserting our information into the database. And first of all, we are verifying if we have a connection. So else, if that is not happening, either the connection did not happen or the insertion of data into the database did not happen, we want to come and create an if statement to test that. So I'm just going to come and say if, and I'll have the condition here, and the condition will be if res is equal true. That is, if they are both working, we have a connection and we have the data inserted into the database. So within the if statement, we are going to now tell the user that information was inserted successfully. And to be able to do that, we're going to first of all start a session. So we will start a session here, and after starting the session, we are now going to come and create the session. So I'm just going to come and say $_ in capital letters session, and I'm going to name this session. Added, and let me just give it a small letters, so added. And the message that will be displayed, so I'll just say equals, and in quotes I'm just going to come and display the message. And what I'll do here, I'll create a div. So I'm just going to create a div here, and I'm also going to close the div here before I forget. And now within the div, before we go inside the div, I want to give this a class of alert success, because I want to show a success message in a green color. So I'm just going to come and say success, and inside here the method or the message rather will be member ended successfully. Okay. So let me just split that right there so that you guys can see what is happening. Yes, and now we are going to have the user being redirected back to the index.php, of course with the message that we've just typed there. So to redirect the user, we are just going to come and say head, or this should be header rather, and we're going to have that with the location of what? Location of index.php. Yes, as simple as that. So if the data is inserted successfully in the database, we are going to redirect the user back to the index.php with this message, member added successfully. Else, if the database, or if the information was not inserted in the database, either because there was no connection or there was a problem inserting the records, we want also to echo an error. So we will be redirecting the user back to the index.php with an error message. So I'm just going to come and say else, and we're just going to have the same message here. So to save time, I'll copy and paste that there, and I'll change this success to a danger because this will be an error message, and I'll just come and say the message will be failed, or let me just come and say oops, failed to add member. Please try again. Please try again. It's good to be kind. Please try again. Alright, and I think that is all the PHP script that we need to add our information, or to add information into the database. And it's time to test our code. So we are heading on back to the index.php rather on our browser here, and I'm just having that refreshed, and I'm going to add the information here. So I'll add the username John, age, company, and the title, and then submit. And we have an error showing nothing. Oh, sorry, we forgot to change this. Should be submit. Okay, so when we were testing whether the submit button was clicked or not, so we forgot to change that. So let me refresh that properly, and then we fill the information one more time and submit. And we have an error on line 19. Let's fix that. Oh, sorry, we had a typo here. So this should be MySQLi. Okay, I had typed my own stuff. Yeah, so refresh that. Okay, still have a couple of errors here. So undefined variable con. Oh, sorry, we forgot one important thing here. We forgot to connect to the database. So on top here, I'm going to require the database. So remember, we have the con.php file that we created here that has the connection to the database. So we are going to require that file here. So con.php, and that is saved. So we now get back to our browser and refresh that. One more error on line 23, undefined session 23. Oh, sorry, another typo here. So this should be session start. Should be session start and not just session. Refresh that, resend, and we now want to see, I'm heading on to the my PHP admin, and I'm just going to come and open the table members, and we are loading that. and as you can see, the information has been inserted. Actually, we have inserted it twice. So the information is successfully being inserted into the database. So now what we want to do is we want to display either an error or a success message when the records are added. And remember, in our add.php we started a session here, and we also created the session for the success message and for the error message, and we named that added. And actually this one we can just come and change the name to maybe if we can name this failed to add. Yes, so that is the session for the error message and for the success message. So now we can head on to our index.php, and the first thing that we need to do in this page is to have the session started. So I'm going to come and have the PHP closing and opening tags, and here I'm going to come and start the session. So I'll say session underscore start. So now, having the session started, we can now come down here and call the session. So I'm just going to come and have it maybe somewhere here, and I'm going to come and have again the PHP closing and opening tags here. And so what I will do is I'll just come and use the if statement. So I'll say if, and the condition will be if is set, and what is set is the session. So I'll have another set of brackets there, and what is set is the session. So I'll just come and say if it's set in capital letter session, and the session name is as you can recall, added. So this is for the success message. So if the records are added successfully, we want to come and echo the added session. So this one here, so we're just going to come and say echo $_ underscore session, and the name of the session is added. Alright, so that is for the success message. We also want to do one for the error message. So we'll do another if statement and have it again with a condition of a set, and we are calling the session, and we are calling the session failed to end. So this is for the error message, failed to end. So remember, that's what we called our session, and here we are going to come and echo that specific session. So that is failed to end. So in the unfortunate event that records are not added successfully to the database, we're going to see this error. And in the event of successfully adding the records to the database, we are going to see this message. So we refresh that on our database here, and we are seeing the message actually. That is, if we come and add records, let me just come and add the records one more time. Like that, then hit on the submit, and we are seeing the message here. And you can see even if I refresh, the message is still here, but we don't want to have the message here always. We want to just show the message temporarily for a few seconds, and then when we refresh, we get rid of the message. So what we do, we have to get back to our PHP index.php, and in our if statement we want to come and unset. we want to come and unset the session. So I'm just going to come and say unset, and I'm going to come and have the session in a set of brackets. So unset the session added, and of course I'm going to have that closed there. And now if I come and refresh that, and let's just add some records again here, and so gettoknowit and director, submit, we get the member added successfully. And then when we refresh that, we get rid of that. Yes, so the code is working properly. Maybe what I can do, I can just come and have these sessions. Let me just come and have the sessions within our container here, just to make that look a bit fancy. So I add some records again like that, and yes, now the success message is being displayed at least properly, or in a decent manner, if you like. So we refresh that, we get rid of that. So if there is an error again, we also want to come and unset that. So I'm just going to come and copy this, and I'm going to come and have that below here, and I'm going to change this to failed to and. So we also need to unset that. Alright, and that's how you can be able to create or add data into the database using a form. And in the next episode, I'll be showing you how you can be able to display that information in a form. See you in a moment. Alright, welcome back. I'm glad that you're still watching. So in this episode, I'm going to show you how you can be able to select data from the database and have it displayed in a table. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to my index.php. So this is where I have my table, and I'm going to go to the body, the T body of my table, and this is where I'm going to have the PHP script. So as usual, I'm going to come and have the PHP opening and closing tags, just like that. So let me just come and have these somewhere there. And now I'm going to come and first require the database connection. So I'll just come and say require, and I'm requiring the con.php. Remember, this is the file that has the database connection. And now down here, I'm just going to come and write the statement that will help me to select data from the database. So I'll create a variable and call it SQL, and I'm going to set that to equal to select all. So I'm just going to come and have select all, and I'm selecting all from the table, the tbl underscore members, just like that. So we have just selected all the records from the tables or the tables members. And now down here we want to come and create the results. So I'm going to come and have the variable named res for results, and I'm going to set that to MySQLi. So basically what we're just doing here, we are creating a query. So query, and this will have the parameters con. So we are just checking if the connection is successfully made, and we're also checking if we can successfully fetch data from the database. So that's the purpose of the query there. And now down here we want to come and check if the res variable is true, that is if we have an error or not. So you're going to come and have an if statement here, and the condition will be if the variable res is equal true. So if it is equal true, we want to come and first of all count the rows that we have inside there. So let me just come and say if it is equal true, we're going to come and have the code there. Else, if it is not equal to true, I want to come down here and say else just before we write any code there. So if it is equal true, we are going to echo a certain code, or we're going to proceed with a certain code. And else, if it is not equal to true, if it is equals to false, then we are going to echo a certain message. And in this case, me just come and say echo no records yet. So this to mean that we don't have any records yet in the table. So I'm just going to come and say no records yet. Yes, so we've just created an if statement to test whether the this statement is working. So we are testing if it is equal true, and if it is equal true, we are going to write a certain code inside there. Else we're going to echo no records yet. So now inside here within the if statement, we're going to come and count the rows first. So I'm going to come and have a variable called count, and I'm going to set that to mysqli underscore num underscore rows. So this is counting the rows, and it is counting the rows in the variable res. So from the result that we corrected on top here, so we want now to count the number of rows that we have. So this will help us to know if we have records or not. So if we don't have records, it is going to return 0 rows. If we have records, it is going to return the number of rows that are there or occupied by records. So now after that, we are now going to come and create a while loop that will help us to fetch our records. So I'm just going to come and say while, and I'm going to come and say create a variable and call it row or rows, and I'm going to set that variable to equal to mysqli underscore fetch underscore assoc, and I'm going to have that with the variable res. So now because I'm able now to fetch the records, I want now to come and have them in the various variables. So the first will be id. So I'll say id is equals to variable rows, and I'll have that as id, and I'm going to copy this just so that we can save some time. So I duplicate that a number of times, and I'm going to change this to username, and that will be equals to the rows username. So basically what we are saying is that the records that we have fetched from the database, I have actually stored them in a variable called rows. So what I'm doing now, I'm picking the specific record that we have in the rows and setting it into a certain variable so that I can be able to have it in my table down here. So this again should be what should be company underscore name, as well as this company underscore name, and we also have age here, so we need one more of these, so we copy and paste that. And the last one I think is title. Yes, so we have now all the information from the database stored in the specific variables. So now we can just come down here and echo these variables because they have the various records that we need. So what I'm just going to do is now down below here, I'm just going to come and break the PHP. So I'm just going to come and say question mark, break that, and I'm also going to start it immediately down here. So it is now within here that I'm going to come and have my TL, so this one here. So I just come and have it inside here, and we just align this properly, move this properly around there. And now what I can now just do is to echo the various records. So for the username, I can just come and say PHP, add the PHP tag, I say echo, and I'm echoing the variable username. And I'm going to come and copy that because I also want to echo the age, I also want to echo the company name, I also want to echo the title. Yes, and I also need to, yes, let me first of all have that. So this will be what? This will be company name. Or let me just come and have age. I don't know how my table columns are. Yes, age, company name, title. So age, company underscore name, and we have the title. Yes, and of course don't forget to add your PHP statement with semicolons. I almost forgot that. Yes, and I hope we are done there. So I want to now just come and try to refresh that, and as usual you have a problem on line 33. Let's try to fix that. What do we have on line 33? index.php line 33. What's the problem there? Seems like we had an extra curly bracket there. Okay. 121. We also have an error on 121. Let's see how we fix that. Oh, sorry, again we forgot the semicolon. Refresh that, and we have one more error on line 94, and find my SQLI query. 94. What's the problem with 94? Is my SQ? Oh, another typo here. Forgive me for this. My SQLI. And finally we have the records down here. As you can see, all the records are displayed. And now in the next episode I'll be showing you how you can be able to edit and delete the various records down there. First, before we write any PHP script that will help us to update our records, we need to create two important files. and the first one will be the one that will contain the update form, and the other one is the one that will contain the PHP script that will help us to update our table. So the first file that I'm going to create here is the update form. So I'm going to come and call it update underscore form.php. So this is where we are going to have the form that will help us update or edit our records. So now within this we are going to have some specific HTML code. I need to create one more file, and that is the one that will contain our PHP script that will help us to edit or update the records. So I'm just going to come and call it update underscore form underscore inc .php. So you can give it any name. In my case, I'm just going to call it that. So it is in this file that we are going to have the PHP script that will help us to edit or update our records, and this is the form in which we will be doing the editing. So now let's start with the update form and have some HTML stuff there. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to head on back to the index.php, and I want to come and grab the form that we created here, because it will be similar to what we'll be using to update our records. So I want to come and highlight all of these and copy that, and I want to go to the update form, and here I'm going to paste that. And the first thing that I will edit is the title, so that we can be able to distinguish between the index and the update form files. So I'm just going to come and put 2 lines there, and I'll just come and call these update form, and I want to come and get rid of all the PHP files that we have here. So that, and as well as this. And we also want to come and get rid of the table. So I'm going to come and get rid of the table down here. So all of this, we get rid of all of that. Yes, so we can come and now try to get rid of the excess space there. And I think we are done. So let's see how that looks on a browser. So here I'm just going to come and try to access the form. So it is update underscore form.php. Yes, and there we have the form. Maybe we can change this name so that we are able to distinguish between the one that we have in the index.php. So I can just come and call it update member form. Yes, and if we refresh that, we should see that. So we have now our update form ready now to display the specific records that are meant for editing or updating. Okay, now before we move to the update form underscore inc to write the PHP script that will help us to update the records, I want to get back to the index.php, and this is where we have the table that contains the records that we want to edit. And what I want to do here is I want to be able to grab the ID of the specific records that a user will have clicked to update or edit. So I'm going to go to the edit button here, and in the href here I'm going to come and have the update form here. So I'm just going to come and say update underscore form. So I want when a person clicks on the edit, the person should be taken to the update form, and you want to go to the update form with ID of the specific selected records. So I'm going to come and say update form.php question mark, and the ID will be equal to, I want to come and echo the ID that we have on top here. So I'm just going to come and I'm just going to come and grab this and have it inside here, and I'll change this to ID because I want to be able to echo the ID. And now if we get to our browser, get back to the index.php, when we try to point at the edit, we are going to see at the bottom of the browser there the ID is equals to 1. When I go to that, I see the ID is equals to 2, 4, 5 and 6. So that is the ID that we want to pass to the update form. So when a person clicks on this, so now that is done, and I think it is working well. Now I need to again head on to the update form, and I want to be able to see if I can be able to, or if I'm passing the ID via the link of the URL. So I'm going to come and write some PHP code here. So open and close PHP, and inside here I'm going to come and use an if statement to help me to see if I'm passing the ID, and I'm going to say the condition will be if it's set. And because I'm using the get method to pass the records, I'll say $_ get, and I want to be able to get the ID, so I'll have the ID in the square brackets there. And now inside here I want to come and store that ID in a variable, so I'm going to create a variable called ID, and I'm going to set that to equal to $_ get the ID that we are getting from the user. So this should be in small letters. And now down here I want to come and echo that specific ID, like that, and here I'm going to come and say echo the variable ID. So now I want to come and refresh that, and when I click on edit, it's loading that, and I should be able to see the ID here. If I come and click on say this one, I should be able to see that specific ID. Now that we are successfully getting the ID through the URL, as you can see on top here, now we can now start updating the records, and this will make sure that we are only editing or updating the only records that we want to update at a specific time. So I'm going to come and get rid of this. So because we need the rest, so that is the best practice of doing this, else you're going to have problems wondering what is happening with your code. So now I want to continue down here, and what I want now to do is to be able to fetch the records from the database based on the ID that we have on top here, based on the ID that we are getting from the URL. So here I'm going to come and create a variable, and I'm going to call it SQL, and I want to select the data from the database. So I'm going to come and say select all from the table, so TBL members, and I want to select the records from the table members where the ID is equals the ID that we are getting through the link. So I'm going to come and say where ID is equals to the variable ID. So this means the ID that we have already gotten from the get method. Remember, we created a variable, and this is where we are storing the ID that we are getting from the link or from the user. So now down here I want to come and create a variable called results. So this is where I'm going to store the results of what I'm getting from the database. So I'm going to come and set this to equal to MySQL query, so MySQLi _ query, and I'm going to have this with a variable con, and this reminds me that I have not connected to the database. We're going to do that in a second. So con and SQL, and just before I forget, we are required to connect to the database. So on top here, I'm going to come and require the con.php. This is where we have our database connection. So con.php. Yes, so if we don't have this, then this will return an error. Now down here, I want to come and check if this is working, if this statement is working, and if it is not working, I should see an error, and if it is working, I should see a success message. So I'm going to come and use the if statement, and I'll have the condition with variable results, and that will be equal to true. So if it is equal to true, I want to continue now to fetch the information from the database, and if it is not true, then I should see something else. So I can come down here and say I can just come down here and say else. So this is just in case we don't have records matching the ID, or the user just tried to edit the URL and put their own IDs. So else, I want to come and echo a certain message here, and I want to start a session first. So this will help me to have this message in the index.html, in the index.php, sorry. So I'm going to come and say session start, and now that we have already started the session, we want to come and create the session down here and give it a name. So I'm going to come and say session, and the session name will be failed, because this will only happen if there is a problem with this statement here, whether we are not able to select the records from the database, or there is some problems with the connection. So I'm going to set this to equal to I'm going to set that to equal to a certain message, and I'm going to have this message wrapped in a div. So I'm going to come and create a div here, and just before I forget, I should close it there. And now within the div, I'm going to have it with a class of equal to. I want to use the Bootstrap alert message. So I'm going to come and say alert quotes, because we already have the double quotes, so I should say single quotes like that, and then this should be alert, and this should be success. Sorry, this should be danger, because this will be an error. So I'm going to say a danger. Let me just come and split this down here so that everyone can see what I'm doing. And now within this div, I'm now going to have the message, and the message I'm just going to have here is no such member. Let me just say no such member. Yes, and I should not forget to close that down there. So this will only happen if this is equals to false. If this logical test returns a false, we'll see this. Else, if it is true, then we want to be able to fetch the records. But before we fetch the records, we want to also be able to count the number of rows. So I'm just going to create a variable with a name count, and this I'm going to set it to equal to MySQLi underscore num, underscore rows. So here we are just counting the number of rows, and we are counting the number of rows in the results variable that we have here. So remember, we selected the records from the database and we stored them in this variable. So we are counting the number of rows that we have in the results that we are getting. And now down here I want to come and say if the count is greater than 0, then we can continue to fetch the records using the while loop. So now I'm going to come and create an if statement there, and I'm going to have the condition with the variable count that we have on top there, and this is if it is greater than 0, we should now fetch the records from the database. And this one will always happen if it is true, remember, and if it is not true, remember, we are not going to get here. So here I want to come and use the while loop to fetch the records. So I'll say while, and inside the while I'm going to come and have the variable rows, and I'm going to set that to MySQLi underscore fetch underscore assoc, and this will have the parameter result. Now down here, because we've already fetched the records, we can now come and have them or store them in various variables. So the first one will be username, so that is equals to rows. Remember, we fetched the records here and we store them in this variable again called rows. So we now want to get the specific records and store them in specific variables. So, and here what we want is the username, and down here we also want to have the age and all that. So I'm just going to come and copy that and paste it down here 4 times, and I'm going to change these to age, and this will be company name, as well as this one, it should be company name. This one will be the title, and the title here. So we are getting now the information from the rows. Remember, we fetched the records, stored them in these variable rows. Now we are getting the specific records and storing them in specific variables here. So now after that, we want to come and echo now the records in our form, because we already have them stored, as I've said. Now we can just come and echo them down here. So here I'm just going to come and have a value, and I'll have the value equal to the first one will be PHP cross PHP, and here I'm going to echo the username, so $username. So let me just come and have that like that, and I'm now going to come and copy this just because I want us to save time, and I'm going to have it on these various records here. So I have that down there. I also want to echo the company name, so put that there, then I have it down there, and finally the title, so I can have it there, have it down there. And this one now I'll just come and change it to title. This one I'll change it to company company underscore name, and this one will be age. Yeah, so I hope everything is working well there. So let me just now go to the browser, and we try to refresh that, and we try to edit a specific record and see if that is working. So I'm going to refresh that, and then I try to click on this record edit, and here as you can see we don't have any errors and we are getting the information from that specific record. So John Mulidi there. Let's say we come to this one, click on it, and we are getting the student and all that information there. So now we can be able to come and edit this information. So we are now just left to create the PHP script that will now edit the records finally. So alright, so now we want to come and write our PHP script that will help us to edit or update the table. Remember, we created the update underscore form underscore in file here, and this is what I want to come and open in a second. My machine is misbehaving a little bit here, so let me work to fix this before we get started so that it doesn't disturb. So now I already have the update underscore form underscore in file open, and this is where we are going to have the PHP script that will help us to update our records. So I'm just going to come and open and close the PHP tags, and within the tags I'm now going to come and have the script. And to start with, I'm first of all going to connect to the database, and to do this I'll just come and require the con.php, which is a file that has our database connection. So con.php, and now down here we want now to come and check if the submit button was clicked. So as usual we're going to have the if statement, and the condition will be if is set, and within a set of brackets we are getting this form or this information via the post method, because we are getting it through a form. So we're going to come and have the post method, another set of square brackets and single quotes, and we are going to have the name submit in small letters like that. And here we basically want to see if the button was clicked, and if the button was clicked successfully, we want to now continue to collect the data supplied by the user and store them in various variables. And the first variable will be username, and the username you're going to set it to equals to post. So what we are getting from the form, so post, and this will be in quotes username. And we also want to get the age, so age, and that will be again equal to post. So post, and this will be ID in single quotes ID. And just before I forget, we also need to get the ID. This is very, very important. So on top here I want to come and have the ID, which will be equal to $ underscore post, and this will be ID. So it's very important to make sure that you have the ID stored in that variable. So here we should not have ID, rather we should have age. It's because I had ID in mind. And we also need to come and create another variable called company underscore name. This is where we are going to store the company name. So post square brackets, double quotes, and here we're going to come and have company underscore name. And down here we're going to have the last which will be title, and that will be equals to again post, and we are going to have title like that, and we should come and close that. So basically what we are doing is that we are getting the information via the post method from the form, and we are now setting the information that we collect into various variables, as you can see here. And now we want to come and do what? We want to come now and create a variable here that will help us to insert that information in the database. So I'm just going to come and have a variable called SQL2, and I'm going to set that to equals to update in capital letters, so update. And what we are updating here is the table members. Remember, we have the records in the table members, and we want to set these. So we come down here, we want to set the username being equal to, in single quotes, I close that, in single quotes. Here we are going to have the variable username. So remember, we stored the information that we collected from the form in the variable username. So we are saying now, and this username in the existing username in the records, or change the username that we have in the database with the new username that we have, or that we are collecting from the form. Alright, so hoping that that is making sense. Here we should not have a semicolon, rather we should have a comma. So don't make that mistake. And we're going to have age being equal to single quotes, and here we're going to have the comma, and here we're going to have the variable age, and down here again we're going to come and have the company underscore name, and I'm going to set that to equal to single quotes, and that there, sorry, this should be comma, and here we're going to come and have the variable company underscore name. And lastly, we want to come and have the title, and the title again will be equal to single quotes, so equal to single quotes, and we don't need to have a comma at the end for the last statement. So we're just going to come and have variable title like that. So we don't need to put a comma here. So basically, again, what we are doing here, we are picking the username that we've collected from the form, and we are updating the username that we have in the database using the newly given username. The same case to age, the same case to company name, and we are adding that with commas and not semicolons. And we want to come and update all those records where ID is equals to the variable ID, so the ID that we are getting from the update form. And now down here, so I want to come down here, and I want to come and create a variable, because I want to come and have the MySQL query. So I'll just come and say MySQLi underscore query, and this will have the following parameters. One will be con, and the other one will be the variable SQL. And now, having created the query, now down here we want to come and test if it is equal to true. And if it is equal to true, we are going to echo a success message, and if it is equals to false, we are going to echo an error message. So I'm going to come and say if, and the condition will be variable results, which will be equal true, And now down here I want to come and echo the success message, and so that I can be able to echo this message wherever I want to come and start a session here. So session underscore start, and now below that I'm going to come and have the session. So I'll just come and say $sign underscore session. So sorry, underscore, not post but session, and I'm going to give the session a name of updated. So updated, and the message will be equal to, here I want to come and create a div as usual. So div, I close that, I have the closing div here, and I also close it. Now within the div I want to come and have a class, so I'll just come and say a class is equal to single quotes, and this one I'm going to come and say alert, and this one will be a success because I want this to be green in color. Let me just come and print that there, and inside the div I'm going to have the message, and I'll just say records updated successfully. Yes, and I should also come and close that there. So that is if this statement is true. This one on top here, sorry, I should also come and add true because we are testing this variable here. So else, if this is equals to false, we want to echo an error message. So I'll just come down here and say else, and this one I'm just going to come and paste that, and I've just copied what we have on top here, and I'll just come and change this to danger, and the message will be failed to update records. So I think that is all the PHP code that we require to update our records. So first of all, we checked if the button submit was clicked. After that, we corrected all the information from the form using the post method, and we stored them in these variables. And now down here we created a variable, and we updated the table members, and we set the records to these. Remember now the records are here, so we just like saying exchange what we have here with what we have in the database, where id is equals to the variable id. Remember, this is the id that we got from the update form, the id that we got from the index.php, and here we are creating the MySQLi query, where we are testing if the connection and the updating is happening, and if it is equal to true, we are supposed to actually redirect the user back to the index.php with the success message. So I should have a header here. I had forgotten this. So location, and for the location it will be what index.php. So we are redirecting the user back to the index.php with that success message, and the same should happen if the connection or the update is not happening. So we are redirecting the user back to the index.html, or rather index.php with this message. We should also come and rename this to failed to update. Alright, so we are going to call that session in our index.php, and actually we can do that right now. So I'm just going to come and copy this because we need to just have the same, and because we have done this before, so I'm just going to come and change this to updated, because that is the session that we have here. And I'm also going to come and have this as well, but that is later. Let me just come and change this first. So change that. And I also want to also call the session for the error message, so I'll just come and paste that there, and I'll just come and pick the name of the failed update session, and I'm going to come and have it here like that, and then now we can have the information saved. So we just want to look for errors just in case we have something that we have missed. And as far as I'm concerned, I think everything is okay. So we can get back to our browser. We'll refresh the index.php. So just refresh that. And we want to come and update this record here, or you can pick any record. So I'm just going to come and pick this. So just come and say edit, and here I'm going to change this to John Doe, and this technical director, and then submit. And it is telling us that failed to update records, so the record was not updated. That means we have a problem somewhere. Sorry, we also need to make sure that this is SQL2 as well. So let us refresh that one more time. We try to edit that, and this one we are going to call him Do, and she will be the technical director, and then we submit, and you can see records updated successfully. And when we come down here, we are now going to see the John Doe, and he is the technical director. And that's how we can basically update records in PHP. So if I come and refresh this, I should get rid of that because we have the unset session here. Alright, so next we want to see how we can be able to edit records using PHP, and this is one of the easiest things. So let me see you in a second as I show you how you can be able to delete records using PHP and MySQLi. So now we want to write the PHP script that will help us to delete records. And to get started, I want to first of all get to the index.php because we want to delete a record based on a certain ID, and we want to pass that ID through the URL. So when a person clicks on delete, we should be able to grab the ID of the specific record that the user wants to delete. And for that case, we are going to go to the delete link here, and the href, we're just going to have something like this. So we're just going to come and say we want to go to the delete underscore record.php. So this is just a file that I've just created, and it is empty. So we're going to be writing the script inside here. So we want to come and link the index to the delete record.php. So I'm just going to come and say delete underscore record dot php, and I'll say the ID is equal to, and I'm just going to come and copy this here because I just want to echo the ID of the clicked record, so that I can grab the ID. And that's it. So if we come now and refresh our work here, and then we point at the delete, we are going to see the ID number appearing at the bottom there, the bottom left. So like that. So we are able to successfully get the ID by just writing this. Remember, you should also have the ID here. So if you don't have this, then you'll not be able to echo it down here. So let me just print this down here so that you guys can see everything. Alright, so now having that being done, now we can now go to the delete underscore records.php and start writing the PHP script to delete our records. So as usual, I'm going to come and have the closing and opening PHP tags, and inside that, the first thing that we want to do is to have the database connection. I always forget this, so database connection, and here you should come and say con.php. And the second important thing that we want to do is to see if we are getting the ID of the selected records. So I'm going to use the if statement, and the condition will be if is set, and this time loud we are getting the data through the link, so that will be the get method. So I'll just come and say $_ underscore in capital letter get, and what we want to get is the ID. And now down here we are now going to come and say that we want to delete the records in the table members. So I'm going to come and create a variable, call it SQL, and I'm going to set that to equal to, in double quotes, delete in capital letters, so delete from the table members. And we want to delete these where the ID, hoping that we are getting the ID successfully. So where the ID is equals to the ID that we have on top here. So that means we should be able to, we should set the ID. So we can come here on top and create a variable, call it ID. And we should now come and get the ID from the user. So get, and we are getting the ID, and we want to come and have that. So this is now the ID that we want to come and call here, so that we delete the records from the table members, where the ID is the ID of the selected records. So I'm just going to come and say variable ID. And now finally here we are just going to come and create the MySQL query. So as usual, I'm going to come and have results is equals to MySQLi underscore query. And here we want to come and check the connection, and we also want to come and check the SQL statements if they are working properly, like that. And we can come and close that down here. And if that is not working, so we're going to come and say if the results, if res is equal true, so we are going to come and have the session started here. So maybe just to save time, I'm just going to come and copy this, because this is the same thing that we need there. So I'm just going to come and copy that, and we're going to come and paste it here. And I'll just change this to record deleted. And if the records are not deleted, we're going to come down here and say else we'll have the same, but we change this to danger. and these will be failed to delete records. To delete record, and we will be redirecting the user or the person back to the index.php with the message. So I think everything is fine. So let's check our code and see if it is working. So I come and refresh that, and just before we test it, I need to go to the index.php, and I want to come and have this session. So as usual, I'm just going to come and copy this, and I want to come and have it with this session name. So I will replace this with that, same case to this with that, same case with this with that. So if the records are deleted successfully, we're going to have this session. Else, if there is an error, I want to come and copy this as well down here. So if there is an error, we want to come and echo this session here. So a record deleted, this should be failed to delete. So let me just come and change that to failed to delete, and I'm going to come and have that. I grab that, and I should have it now here. Yes, and now we can come and try to delete the record. Let me just try to grab this, delete, and sorry if we have a mistake on line 15. What's wrong? Oh, sorry, we should not have a full stop here. Alright, so let me go back and refresh that, and I try to now get rid of it, and we have a problem. It's showing nothing. So okay, let me come and change this to SQL 3. This one also to 3. I think it's because I've used this variable a number of times, and this one also equals to 3. So I've just changed these the results, and the results here, and the SQL here, and this variable here as well. Alright, so let me check if that is working now. I think that's where we are getting a problem. So delete, and still we have nothing. Okay, so let me just have it back to normal. We also not getting any error. I'm wondering why. Let me see if we can be able to echo the ID. Okay. Let me first of all try to grab this. I'll remove that temporarily and try to see if I can be able to get the ID. So refresh that, and delete, and we are getting nothing. That means the problem is on top here. If it's set, let me get to this and see. Okay, so it means we are not getting the ID, and I need to fix that. I can head on back to the index. I got the problem. So here, when we were grabbing the ID here, we didn't add the ID is equal to. So here we should have ID is equal to, else we'll not be getting the ID. So let's now try to see if we can be able to echo the ID here. So I'm going to come and refresh that. I say delete. Yes, and we should be able to get the ID, as you can see. And if we are able to get the ID, that means we can be able to delete the record. So let me just get rid of that, and I should now go back, refresh that, and try to delete the record. Yes, and you can see records deleted, records updated successfully. No. We have a problem. We should change that message. We should say change that message to records deleted. So this should be records deleted. Okay. So we can delete one more record. For example, we delete the last one here. Yes, and now you can see the message records deleted successfully. And that marks the end of our CRUD tutorial, create, read, update, delete records in PHP. I hope the video was helpful. If there is anything that was not clear, kindly use the comment section below to raise your problem, and I'll be more than ready to help. Kindly, if the video was helpful, kindly like it, subscribe, so that you can see these and more videos in future. And as usual, see you in the next one.